Yeah, well, thinking out loud for a second with all of the dysfunction in Congress, I think AI is actually a place, though, where you might see some bipartisan agreement. And if you do what you just described, where there's something in it for local constituents within Congress, that,
That could
I think
help.
you could see something, and
Yeah.
maybe it's a bulwark against what I worry about with AI regulation, which is sort of freezing the incumbents in place as the leaders at the expense of maybe some folks with fewer resources there as well. But last question as we close out the second episode in this two-part series on AI in higher ed. Let's zoom back out again. We've gone deep over the last many minutes. Bigger picture, Jeff. Is this a transactional technology or is this going to be a transformational technology? Like, what do you think? Is this the desktop computer which simply shifted how higher ed was transacted, but nothing transformational, or is this the internet where you actually saw a transformation of real models of education itself in many many ways?
Yeah, Michael, I've been thinking a lot about this because of our last guests, our last couple of guests, right? So we had, Cal Newport on in that first episode the last week, and I think he saw it as potentially transformational, right? But right now, as he said, it's kind of more iterative and probably more transactional in how it's being used. And then we had Lev, who was kind of all in on its transformative power. And I'm going to say I'm more of an early adopter, so I must say that I tend to get pretty excited about technology in my household. My wife not so much, right? So she tends to pull me back from kind of jumping all in on new technology. So I'll say I'm probably more in the Lev camp when it comes to transformation. So, Michael, a lot has been written about this period that we're living in right now, this AI period, and how it compares to the development of the internet, right? It's something that we have talked about on these last couple of shows. And a lot has been written about how this period that we're living in right now compared to the Industrial Revolution. And let's just stay with that comparison with the Industrial Revolution, because if we think about the Industrial Revolution, the steam engine power that was developed during the Industrial Revolution, if all we thought about that was, okay, it's just going to change the way the process happens, right? So we had a process of making a product, and suddenly now we're just going to put steam behind it, right? And it's just going to change how that product is made, but it's not really going to transform how the product is made. We really wouldn't be where we are today. There's this quote from Deirdre McCloskey, who's an economist, and the quote is, the Industrial Revolution was neither the age of steam, nor the age of cotton, nor the age of iron. It was the age of progress, right? And we really thought of it in a very different way. And I still think that we're thinking too much around AI as being transactional and not thinking about how it can not only change how we do things, how we educate students, how we design institutions, how we do our work. And I think that's where Cal was going. I think he sees that. He just thinks that we're not there yet. And I really do think the same thing is happening now. And perhaps I'm overstating it, but I think one of the reasons there is so much kind of political unrest right now around the world is because I think we all realize that the world of work, how we sustain ourselves, it's really shifting in ways we don't yet understand. And, none of us were alive for the Industrial Revolution, but it probably feels the same way now that it felt back then to those people who saw that the world of work was changing in ways that they didn't understand. And, if you go back to the work of the Nobel Prize winner, Claudia Golden, we know there are these periods of huge social unrest after there are these massive technology changes, right? Especially after the Industrial Revolution. And as she and Lawrence Katz have written, those times of social unrest are then followed usually by prosperity. And that prosperity then is usually driven by advances in education. So I think if you take the dystopian view of this, we may never reach that age of prosperity, but I, again, tend to be an optimist. So I think that where higher ed should be thinking right now is, what type of education are we going to need in the future? There's going to be a lot of changes in the coming years, not all of them good, but what parts of jobs, of degreed jobs now are going to change? What types of jobs are going to go away because of AI? And as Cal Newport said, higher ed isn't always great about predicting the future, but where I think they can play a role here is kind of being ready to move fast when that future is created. And there will be a new future after this very disruptive period that we're going to live through for the next couple of years.
Yeah, great point, Saul. I will say here's to an age of progress, if we use that mantra. I'd also recommend Carlota Perez's work, obviously, on a lot of this, The Economist. But what you said, I think, echoes a lot of my thinking. The reality, I think, is AI is going to be used both as a sustaining innovation, and we may see it as a disruptive innovation, where, like the internet, it's the enabler, in effect, of radically different business models of education. That's certainly what our friend Paul LeBlanc, former Southern New Hampshire University president and now CEO of a new venture that I'm not going to name or use the name because I think he's hopefully going to rebrand it, but that's certainly what he's hoping. And I think, Cal is also right that at least as higher ed is concerned, we're still searching for product market fit. As in, I spend a lot of time in K-12 and higher ed, and I see a ton of entrepreneurial right now activity, Jeff, in K-12 around AI. I see actually, frankly, a lot of activity around AI on the entrepreneurial front in workforce and upskilling. In what we'd call higher ed, I don't see nearly as much entrepreneurial activity around AI. It is striking how different it is. I won't get into why I think that is for now, but just to say that the difference is really, really, it seems big to me. But let's leave it there. We've gone long enough, but I think the longer show was worth it because we got a good deep dive on this topic. So a thank you to College Vine for sponsoring this mini series on AI and higher education that allowed us to venture into these territories. A thank you, of course, to our guests today, Lev Gonick and Ashley Budd. And a thank you, of course, to all of you, our listeners. And a reminder to you all to follow Future You Podcast, Jay Selingo, Michael B. Horn on your favorite social media channels. And with that, we'll see you next time